Miss Sack, we are now streaming on YouTube.
Thank you, Dr. Lawson. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the District Library Book Objection Committee meeting. The purpose of today's meeting is to review an objection to the book titled Shine by Lauren Miracle. School-based and district staff, as well as parent and community members, are invited to participate on each committee. Today's meeting will result in a recommendation that will be forwarded to Mr. Forson, our St. Johns County School District Superintendent. This committee meeting is public record and therefore subject to the Sunshine Law. It is being live streamed for public viewing. Committee members are not required to have their camera on during the meeting. We're committed to civility and decorum. Please assist us in maintaining a constructive meeting environment by remaining respectful of each participant during the meeting and afterwards. Additional discussion of the objecting party or committee members outside the meeting is discouraged. Disparaging comments are contrary to district expectations regarding character and civility. Committee members received several resources in advance of the meeting. The resources included the objecting party's request for reconsideration, a copy of the book, Florida statutes, Florida Department of Education guidance for library media services, professional source reviews, St. Johns County School Board rules, the Library Bill of Rights, and the School Library Media Materials Evaluation Checklist. The process for today is as follows. First, the objecting party will have the opportunity to address the committee. They will provide any information they deem compelling or new regarding their request. Next, the committee will have a discussion utilizing the School Library Media Material Evaluation Checklist. Finally, the committee will determine a recommendation for Superintendent Forson. There's two options: retain the book for a designated level or remove the book from all St. Johns County School District libraries. For our meeting today, both agreeable and opposing viewpoints are welcome, and we look forward to attaining consensus. Are there any questions regarding the process? Raise your hand if you have a question. Okay, seeing none, let us begin. Jean Moore is the objecting party for Shine. Ms. Moore, this is your time to address the committee. You have up to 5 minutes to share your objection.
Good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity to share my thoughts. My concerns with this book are it contains pedophilia, sexual activities, including sexual assault, sexual nudity, drug and alcohol use and abuse, and derogatory terms. The Florida law says that school library books cannot contain sexual conduct as defined in Florida Statute 847.001-19 as described in 847.001-16. Florida Statute 847.001-16 states sexual conduct means actual or simulated sexual intercourse, deviant sexual intercourse, sexual bestiality, masturbation, or sadomasochistic abuse, actual lewd exhibition of the genitals, actual physical contact with a person's clothed or unclothed genitals, pubic area, buttocks, or if such a person is a female, the breast with the intent to arouse or gratify the sexual desire of either party, or any act or conduct which constitutes sexual battery or simulates that sexual battery is being or will be committed. This is an example of the violation of the laws, actual physical contact with a person's genitals, and conduct which constitutes sexual battery. His breath smelled like my daddy's corn liquor. He fumbled at the elastic of my panties, but my cutoffs were too tight, and he couldn't work his fingers to where he wanted. Come on now, cat, let me feel how wet you are. I didn't know what that meant. I pressed my spine into the sofa to get away from him, but moving like that raised my hips and loosened the hug of my shorts. His fingers slithered under my panties. Oh yeah, he said, moving his fingers the best he could. You see now? I was lost. Tommy was touching a part of me that no one was supposed to. I was pushing against him, but he was so much bigger than me. And my throat, it was like someone had wrapped a band around it and cinched it so tight I could hardly breathe. The sounds I made, because I tried, I did, they came from some other girl. They were please and stop, but so trembly that they simply shuddered up into the air. By that point, Tommy had unbuttoned my shorts and yanked them down around my thighs, along with my panties. I was gripping them, trying to get them back up, but he was stronger. He no longer had his hand down my tank top, but instead his right arm stretched along the back of the sofa, bearing his weight while his left arm rode the length of my belly, straight as a rod until the sharp flex of his wrist. With Aunt Tiddly standing frozen behind him in the doorway, he got one finger up inside of me. I whimpered. He kept at it, and the heel of his palm driving into my pelvic bone until he got in two more. Then he moaned. That sick bastard moaned, and Aunt Tiddly snapped out of her trance. I gotta go, I said through my tears and snot. I squirmed, but that just made it worse. It hurt. I could feel his fingernails, which I knew to be grimy with oil, and I squeezed shut my eyes, wanting to make everything disappear. I cannot express to you enough how disgusting that was to read out loud. Other gross sexual content. Destiny sucks cock. He liked girls, and the younger the better, because seeing little kids in angel robes gave him a boner. In the summer, he'd show up at the lake where younger kids went swimming, and his thing made a teepee out of his swim trunks right there in front of God and every other living soul. And there was me in my too small dress, my nipples poking tents in the fabric without my having any say over it. Although the author does attempt to describe how bad drugs are for you and that they can change your life negatively, any positive messaging is lost in the graphic violent assault of Patrick, the graphic sexual assault of Kat, as well as the frequent profanity and hate speech throughout the book. The bottom line is that the graphic, detailed sexual assault of Kat violates the obscenity law. This committee has no other choice than to recommend the removal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Committee members, we will now begin our discussion utilizing the school library media material evaluation checklist. Before we go straight to the checklist, I do want to go over the Florida statute regarding objections to school materials. So the statute states that any material used in a classroom, made available in a school or classroom library, or included on a reading list may be objected to for 4 specific reasons. The first reason is the material is pornographic or prohibited under section 8.47.012. If our committee determines that this book is pornographic, then it would be removed from the library automatically. There are 3 other reasons. For the remaining 3 reasons, the committee will determine if there is an appropriate grade level where the material could be available for students, or should it be removed completely. So those 3 reasons are: the material depicts or describes sexual conduct as defined in 847.001 of Florida statute. The material is not suited for student needs and their ability to comprehend, or the material is inappropriate for the grade level and age group for which it is used. So as we work our way down the list, we will touch on each of those reasons for the objection and whether or not, and we'll be voting on whether or not we believe that there's reason to remove the materials. Okay, keep in mind that our final task on the form is to make a recommendation to Superintendent Forson, and there are 2 options: retain the book for a designated level or remove the book from all St. Johns County School District libraries. Again, statute is clear that we must remove the title if there is a violation of question 4, which is in relation to pornography. The floor will be open to discussion, and each committee member will have the opportunity to share. Comments will be summarized to provide an overall committee response for each question. Please remember that anytime you'd like to provide a comment, just raise your hand. For our meeting today, both agreeable and opposing viewpoints are welcome, and we look forward to attaining consensus. Let's begin. Okay, question 1 on the school library media material evaluation. It's just a citing of the objecting party's challenge of the material. Why are they objecting to the material? So of course we heard from Ms. Moore, and on her actual form that she submitted, she stated that she's objecting due to sensitive material ratings. The book contains profanity, derogatory terms, alternate sexualities, pedophilia, sexual activities, including sexual assault, sexual nudity, drug, alcohol use and abuse, and violence. So those, we will make sure that we include exactly what Ms. Moore wrote on her reconsideration form will be placed as the answer for number 1, because we will take this form and we'll send it to Mr. Forson for his complete review. So we'll move on to question number 2. So for question number 2, the reason we have this question is it just gives Mr. Forson an indication of, did the members of the committee look at the pages that were cited by the objecting party? So if you did review the pages that were cited by the objecting party, please vote now with a yes. If you did not get a chance to look at those pages, please vote no.
That
Okay.
is 8 yes votes for question 2. You may now clear your vote. If everyone can clear their vote.
Okay, we will now move on to question number 3. Again, if you had a chance to look over the professional and or crowdsourced reviews for this book, if those were considered, please vote yes. If you did not have a chance to look at those reviews, please vote no.
We have 8 yes votes for question 3. You may now remove your vote.
Thank you. Okay, question number 4. Is the material pornographic or prohibited under Florida Statute 847.012? Yes or no? Please vote. Is the material pornographic or prohibited under Florida Statute 847.012?
We have 8 no votes for question number 4. You may remove your vote now.
Okay, because the committee found that this is not pornographic, then we will look at the remaining 3 reasons that you can submit an objection. And if we find that one of these 3 reasons it does meet one of these reasons, then really the question on the table is there a grade level that this book is appropriate or is there not? So first step for question number 5, does the material depict or describe sexual conduct as defined in Florida Statute 847.001 paren 19? Does the material depict or describe sexual conduct as defined in Florida Statute 847.001 paren 19?
Ms. Sapp, we have 8 yes votes for question number 5.
Okay, thank you.
You may now remove your vote.
Ms. Dixon, can you share with the committee where is this material currently located, at what levels in the St. Johns County School District?
This book is available in high schools in St. Johns County.
Okay, so we're looking at grades 9 through 12 is the current availability, so you can kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so for question number 6, is the material unsuited to student needs and their ability to comprehend the material presented? please vote. Is the material unsuited to student needs and their ability to comprehend the material presented? We're on question number 6. If everyone could please vote. Is the material unsuited to student needs and their ability to comprehend the material presented?
Ms. Sapp, we have 8 no votes for question number 6.
Thank you.
You may remove your vote at this time.
Question number 7. Is the material inappropriate for the grade level and age group for which it is used? So please vote. Is this material inappropriate for grades 9 through 12? Is this material inappropriate for grades 9 through 12?
Okay, Ms. Sapp, we have 4 yes votes and 4 no votes for question number 7.
Okay, thank you. So our next,
You may now remove your vote.
sorry.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. No, that's good. We've completed, the questions that require a vote. Our next, objective is to come up with our recommendation to the superintendent. So I would like to open the floor. Is there anyone who would like to make any comments or would like to make a recommendation of where we should start? We can, currently, of course, this material is available for grades 9 and up. There's also, we can put it out on the floor that the material is not appropriate and should be removed. Those seem to be our 2 options. So I'm just opening the floor for comment or recommendation for our first vote.
There are no hands raised or anyone in the chat.
Okay. Because the material is currently in grades 9 and up, we're going to go ahead and take a vote to make that recommendation to Superintendent Forson. This material is appropriate for grades 9 and up. If you would please vote yes or no to the statement, the material is appropriate for grades 9 and up.
Ms. Sapp, for the grades 9 through 12, appropriate, we have 3 yes votes and 5 no votes.
Okay.
You may remove your vote at this time.
So we'll move on to our next option. The material is not appropriate and should be removed. Please vote. If you agree with the statement, the material is not appropriate and should be removed. If you agree with the statement, vote yes.
Ms. Sapp, we have 5 yes votes and 3 no votes for the statement remove from library. You may remove your vote now.
Thank you to the committee. We do have a majority of votes. The material is not appropriate and should be removed. Our voting and everything in its entirety will go forward to Mr. Forson with our recommendation. Any other comments? Is there anyone wanted to make a statement about to be included in the notes before we go through the final actions of the committee? Hey, Julie, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for running such a efficient meeting. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to make a statement that I think this is appropriate. It's a challenging, awful story to read, but I think for grades 9 and up, it's naive of us to think that this kind of stuff is not happening to students in that school population. And I think it's important to remember that when we censor students reading, we're not protecting them. We're just avoiding talking about some challenging topics. And it's important for our young adults to be able to be in the world, and that might include and does include the knowledge that sexual assault does exist and violent hate crimes do exist, especially against the LGBTQ community. So I just wanted to go on record and voice those concerns.
Thank you, Julie. Caitlin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say one of the reviews that we were given, I thought made a good statement and shared that it was a well-written, fast-paced story about the danger all teenagers can face if their peers view them as different, tackles diversity issues and hard choices facing teenagers who don't always view the consequences of their actions. Having worked with a fairly diverse student population over the last 12 years in St. John's, I think that a lot of the content in this, again, while maybe uncomfortable, is probably relevant and more common for a lot of our students than what some of us may realize. And I think that the overall message, especially regarding the negativity with substance abuse and the potential dangers, I think is a good message for our students to hear, even with some of the uncomfortable situations or scenes within the book.
Thank you, Caitlin. Jill?
Miss Sapp, Brandy
Oops.
was next.
Oh, I apologize. Jill, would you mind holding off for a second? Brandy, go ahead.
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm going to second Julie's statement for thank you for running such a easy meeting and flowing. I did vote to remove this from our libraries, and I wholeheartedly agree with Julie and Caitlin with that. These are some challenging topics, and it is very naive for us to think that our kids are not being exposed to this, that we aren't seeing it, that kids aren't experiencing it. The reason I took the stand, or kind of the vote that I did, was that while it does kind of highlight, and it is a fast-paced novel about some challenging topics, I did not feel that it was well written. I thought it mishandled some of the topics, grossly mishandled some of them. And yes, it kind of exposed some of those challenging topics that are occurring. It didn't really help with navigating and resolving those issues. And if the author had taken kind of that route of what do those two main characters, how can they overcome the challenging topic, or how does the school, there just would have been a lot of other ways that it could have been handled that I think would have been more productive. And I would have said, yes, leave it in the school, but there was a lot of profanity. There was a lot of the language in the book that I had a hard time getting through. And then there was really no kind of there was no, what's the word I'm looking for as a writer? It almost I felt like it glossed over the kid at the end jumps, is killed, and it kind of almost glossed over how to actually address and approach those topics. So that's kind of where I took the stance. I do agree with Julie and Caitlin. These are topics our kids are handling and facing. I just don't think this book did a great job of helping navigate those situations.
Okay, thank you, Brandy. Dr. Lawson, who's next?
Jill was next.
Okay, go ahead, Miss Lee. Miss Lee, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Sapp. I agree that it's very important to acknowledge and support students who are dealing with these issues. And I also noticed that the book was written in 2011, so there was kind of a lack of information about maybe some of the follow-up things that we all know about these topics now. But I'm a little baffled because I feel like our committee's recommendation doesn't match our votes on items 2, 3, and 4. We basically voted that it does describe sexual conduct and that it's not inappropriate for all age levels, and now we're banning it for all age levels. So I just wanted to say I find that our final vote a little confusing.
Thank you, Miss Lee. Julie, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I had a question. In the materials that were circulated to the review committee in advance of this meeting, it's a question about what is the district using as professional and crowdsourced reviews during this process. And this is perhaps more of a question for future review committees, but I noticed that BookLooks is included, and I wasn't sure if that was included as an example of a crowdsourced review or as a part of the objecting party's objections. Oh, you're on mute still. Ms. Sapp, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. I may need a little help from Ms. Dixon and her team, but I believe BookLooks came in as part of the objecting party's reconsideration materials. Ms. Dixon?
Yes, Ms. Sapp, you are correct. The BookLooks was included as a part of the objecting the complainant's objection. The professional reviews were provided by Mackin, and the sensitive materials rubric was also provided by the objecting party. So those are the crowdsourced, which is BookLooks is a crowdsourced review and was submitted by the objecting party.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any additional hands, so I appreciate all the discussion. We will make sure that we include those notes when we submit the recommendation to Mr. Forson.
We have Ms.
Okay, one
Sapp,
more
we
hand.
have
Yes,
one more hand that went up.
go ahead, Brandy.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm sorry, I do have a question. Jill had kind of mentioned earlier how we, our final vote is that we are going to recommend that it is not, that it is removed from the libraries. But when we were going through our checklist and looking at questions 4, 5, and 6 and deciding, whether or not it's pornographic or prohibited, this may be something I can ask later, but when I looked at that Florida statute, that only Florida statute 847.012, I kind of took that as it doesn't describe it is not pornographic, but then when you go into some of the more detailed subsections, 847.001 3A 723, it is pornography. Is the committee or are the committees asking us to look at those very specific statutes and then determine whether or not we consider something pornographic? I think it's just a little bit unclear or ambiguous in terms of if you are just looking at 847.012, is it pornographic? No, but then when you go into those subsections, it does describe pornography. So I think that would just be helpful moving forward with some of the committees and saying this is what we mean by that when we ask that question.
Okay, we appreciate that input. But we do include those Florida statutes for the purposes of committee members can read the statute and then decide, I mean, that, decide for themselves according to that definition. Do they believe it meets the definition or not? So hopefully that helps a little bit, but I appreciate what you said about just making sure that it's comprehensive.
Ms. Sapp, we have a comment in the chat. Caitlin said it can be sexual in nature without being pornographic. And we do have one more hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Julie.
Sorry for all the questions. I just wanted, it's a similar sentiment to the comment. My understanding, and I did read all the statutes, but I am admittedly not a lawyer. Pornography requires an intent to arouse or excite. So books can include things of a sexual nature without that intent to arouse. And this is a very sad example, I think, of that. I think it does include sexual content because it's describing an awful sexual assault. But there is definitely no intent to arouse or excite in this book, which is why I think it's definitely not pornographic.
Thank you for those comments, Julie. Okay. Thank you everyone again for your participation. We just have a few closing comments. There are 2 final action steps to conclude our work. Number 1, your acknowledgement as a participant on the committee is needed on the recommendation of Mr. Forson. The recommendation, which will include notes from today's discussion, will be emailed to you. You may acknowledge participation by responding to the email, or you may review and sign the documents in person at our Media Services office at 10 Hildreth in St. Augustine. The second thing we need you to do is return your book and any notes from your work to prepare for today's meeting. All notes are required as part of this meeting being as far as the Sunshine Law. So please return your book and any notes for your work to the location where you picked up your book. Are there any questions regarding our closing process? Okay, thank you again. This concludes the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.